Welcome you guys to our coffee hangout. We're going to be talking today about practicing empathy and compassion in your marriage. And we are still working on our book together. So it's a series if you guys want to go back and check that out. It's our transforming marriage journey. And this week, or in this last section at least, we've been talking about being able to heal your heart, and then heal the heart in the marriage pretty much, and what are the things that it takes. And it's interesting that what we're going to be talking about today seems like it's for someone else, and at some rate I think someone else gets the benefit in your relationship besides you. But the truth is, the more that we can employ, um, between our last conversation and this conversation, the things um, that mean be of service, then we're actually healing our own heart and developing our own strength more than we probably even realize. And so, what are those things? Well, one of the pieces that happens in relationships as they start to go wrong is you get so concerned with the feelings that you're getting, with the hardship that you're facing, with all of the hooks that have happened because of what's gone on in your relationship. And it doesn't mean that you're at fault or that your partner's at fault. It's not even about pointing fingers. It's really just the idea that there's a struggle, and now your body is kicking in, and so it's getting really concerned about what you're experiencing and how to try to avoid those things. Well, as that's happening, the thing that leaves is your ability to really be empathetic and have compassion inside of your marriage. But to restore normalcy and peace and joy into your body, and then ultimately into your relationship, you'll have to do something different. And the two things I want to talk about today are the ideas of empathy and compassion. So let's break them up a little bit and try to get an understanding of each of them, and then talk about how we can actually put them into your relationship. And then what would some challenges be if we're trying to put them in, and how do we overcome those challenges? If we can do those things, I think you're going to be on your way to really being able to utilize both of those ideas. And so, first, starting with the idea of empathy. So, while you might know the words, I think it's really important for us to just define them, so that we kind of have a way of constantly putting them in play, because they go hand in hand, but they're enough for us to separate them out differently. And so, for us, empathy is really the idea that we're understanding what our person is feeling. And not only do we understand, like, it's not a matter of like, I get 2 + 2 = 4. It's understanding even the depths of what makes that happen. And so, when you talk about empathy, empathy is happening because you're getting beyond the idea that, oh, the person who I'm in relationship is feeling hurt by something, right? Like, that's one avenue. But the reason they're feeling hurt are could be a combination of different things. But understanding those reasons allows you to really put yourself in their place, and in their experience, more than just you being able to say, I know that's a hurtful experience. Instead, you can actually feel what it is that they're feeling. And so, empathy allows you to really be in that place, emotionally and feeling wise. The second idea is the idea of compassion. And so, compassion actually creates a whole lot of um, force in your relationship that's positive if we can constantly use it. And so, in addition to empathy, so one is you probably will understand what somebody is feeling, but then two, you're also going to have a sense of being soft with them. And so, it's an interaction piece, along with the understanding that you have of what it is that they're experiencing. And as you can put those two things together, empathy and compassion, then your interaction with your partner starts to, I mean, it starts to move mountains pretty much. And so, there's different ways that you can um, have compassion. I think the starting point from compassion is usually with yourself. So, if hard things happen, and there's some kind of suffering, and you don't have compassion for yourself, it's going to be hard for you to be able to extend that kindness when it comes time to supporting other people who are suffering. So when your partner is suffering inside of your relationship, if you weren't able to do that for yourself, you're less likely to maintain or be able to do it for them. Okay. And so the more that you can do it with yourself and be able to recognize that, um, recognize the ways or the times that you need to have compassion, the better. Okay. And so compassion again is the idea that you are going to show concern, interact with I call it a softness towards the things that somebody's experiencing. And part of compassion to me is looking for how things help, but it's not necessarily helping. It could be helping, but it's not necessarily helping. So compassion is just trying to be able to be next to somebody while they're going through it without trying to solve their feelings or change what it is that they're experiencing. So really important for us to look at compassion that way, so it doesn't turn into anything else. Okay. And so how do we show empathy and compassion? Well, empathy to me is um, useful when we can connect all of the dots underneath with our partner in words. And so if they come to you with some kind of scenario that has happened to them, or in your relationship, if they're saying, I'm offended this way, well, the first thing you might want to tell them is why they shouldn't be offended. But instead of doing that, if you can replace that with the idea that says, look, I understand all of the ways that connects. And so I get that brings on the same kind of feeling for me as well. And so not pushing them away is a really big deal, or not seeing the emotion and pushing them away is a really big deal. We'll get into that in our barriers in a second. And then with the compassion idea, the idea that you show compassion is a willingness to stay in it and be soft while you're there. So not be impatient or think that they need to be in a different emotional space, or trying to use your kindness so that they move emotionally is what compassion is. And that's a good way for you to be able to show compassion. They're going through something, and you let them know that you're going to be here as long as it takes for them to go through and be in what it is that they're in. So how do we actually start growing those things? Because we might know the words, but it might be hard for us to do. And so you need to definitely have daily habits with all the things that we talk about that start developing those situations. Because a lot of times it's not that you're consciously making a choice to not be empathetic or compassionate. A lot of times it's not your go-to because you're not training it. You're not developing your ability to do those things. And so habits would be journaling, things like journaling um, what the depths of your experiences are so that you can see it with yourself, both empathy and compassion, and then how you want to sit with it. So that starts putting it into motion on the inside of you. But then with your partner, it's a huge deal for you to be able to practice being able to use things that mean you see below what's being presented. So a huge deal for us to just be able to have a habit of picking one of those two things, or both of them, and start working on that. Okay, what can we do as a couple though to really work on this? And as a couple, I think it's in your talk time that you'll do together on a weekly basis, in your conversations, really be able to discuss more about what it looks like to have empathy and compassion, and then open it up to each other. Like, does this feel like empathy, or does it feel like compassion, or is it crossing the line to me being, a rescuer, or somehow manipulating? What does it feel like to you, and how can we hone in on it? I think that's an amazing activity that you guys can do for each other and with each other as a couple. And so part of what it means for us to be able to do this together is some of the things that are going to have to happen like right in the moment is us being able to forgive and understand what's going on. And so sometimes in our partnerships, the arguments and the challenges of the moment are higher, and so they don't allow us to be able um, to step in right away and be empathetic and compassionate with each other. So always allow, and this to me is a practical step for you to be able to do, always allow time, because whenever your emotions get high, your thoughts drop out. And so the things that we're talking about right now and getting you to try to think about being in your relationship are difficult because your emotions may be high. And so if you can use forgiveness and time to manage how you're feeling in the moment and get to that place where you can actually build on the empathy and compassion, it becomes a different kind of habit. And the more you practice that, instead of your frustration becoming the response to hardship, then now empathy and compassion can become those things. Okay, so that kind of like overfills into our ideas of what, how do we overcome some of the challenges. Well, some of those practical steps are going to really help you to overcome the challenges, but what if we just look at some of the common challenges that come up whenever it comes time to being able to exercise empathy and compassion? Well, some of the obstacles, a lot of times, I think really the biggest obstacle is that emotionally we just can't get to the spot of being empathetic and compassionate because our feelings are hurt. We are hooked on something, like there's some kind of scenario that's gone on to where we're just like, no, that's absolutely it. I can't be who I'm really trying to be because you're not being who you need to be. And so as that's happening, then we struggle to really get to a different place in our hearts and in our minds so that we can even be empathetic. And so again, I think the answer to that is for us to give ourselves time and space so our emotions can drop out and come back to the empathetic ways of being and the compassionate ways of being as soon as possible. And in there, it's um, the idea of us being able to forgive and not stay focused on the transgression, but stay focused on what it is that we're trying to build in our relationship. Okay. So, what about, as it gets difficult, what would be, a huge opportunity for us? How can we really do this in the moments of challenge? And I think um, another big opportunity for you guys to be able to switch things over is for us to be able to do things proactively. And so that's where some of the steps for us being able to cultivate our empathy and compassion come in, is be as proactive as you can and stay out of reactive situations. So already have these things set up. And the more that you have these situations set up, the better you're going to be whenever the situation starts getting too big for you. And so I've watched couples, and this is kind of to me, just to encourage you guys, if you're having a hard time with this, is I've watched couples just practice and practice and grind at getting better at the situations where they can be more empathetic in the moment. And it's hard, but overall they practice. And so obviously we're having sessions too, and that's like an exercise. But even if you're not, I have YouTube videos that you guys can constantly watch, and as that's happening, you get stronger. And so just to encourage you guys, like, couples are doing this. Like, couples are actually working at being able to be focused on the right kinds of things so that they can overcome the challenges are that are in the way of them being able to show empathy and compassion. All right, so just to kind of review some of the key points. One is, us being able to understand empathy is a big deal. Us being able to understand that our partner is going through something and the emotion is only the tip of the iceberg. It's up to us to really understand where that's coming from and be next to that. And compassion is something that helps us to be next to our partner no matter what it is that they're going through. This idea overall of service is going to serve you really at the end of the day, but it feels so good to your partner and your relationship the more that you can do that. And so I want to encourage you guys to keep implementing um, empathy and compassion on a daily basis and practicing it until you're strong at it, until you do that as well as you do breathing, right? And so, yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, please share this with your partners, with your friends, And then also in the comments, please share some of the experiences that you've had with making empathy and compassion work. I also want to encourage you guys to do some subscribing and liking as much as possible so we can help as many couples as we possibly can. And then we have our marriage communication masterclass. We just did one, but we'll do our next one at the end of August. And so you guys go ahead and subscribe and link to that as soon as you can. All right, you guys, we'll talk to you soon. Enjoy your Tuesday.